You know, a lot of you probably think about Aboriginal languages as just like, oh, this is a really great positive thing, and you know, it's an education and learning journey. The whole reason why this work exists is because of what's been taken from us. And so even going on this journey and reclaiming and revitalising our language and culture, it can be a sorry experience, but there's a lot of healing in it as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie Rose. Welcome back to another Impact Policy podcast. It's Aboriginal Languages Week. To celebrate this, we attended the Aboriginal Languages Festival yesterday, where Sam and I had the privilege to be on 2 different panels. In this episode, we'll talk about all things language and revitalisation. So enough talking, get stuck right into the episode.
Yesterday there was a massive festival around Aboriginal Languages Week.
Yeah.
Which was mad, and it was at Carriage Works, and it was a real celebration of all the language groups around New South Wales in terms of our revitalisation journeys. And so, you know, community event, lots of performances, lots of language classes for people to start to understand and connect to language learning. And then an opportunity as well for us to share some of the work that we've been doing with the Aboriginal Languages Trust. They're like the peak. You know, they're a government body now for really leading language revitalisation here in New South Wales too. So, you know, we both got an opportunity to be a part of that as well. But yeah, Aboriginal Languages Week, it's this week every year, and they do that event biannually now. Every second year they do a massive community event, and yeah, it was mad.
Yeah.
Seen so many people there from our communities and from outside our communities, and yeah, it's good.
It was good. There was a big representation of some strong, powerful Gamilaroi women, especially one of the elders that were a part of the youth forum, which is the panel that I was a part of. I wasn't, they had 4 elders and then a group of youth and younger people talking about how they see the next 10 years of language use and revitalisation. There was familiar elders, Anironda Ashby, who I just spent a lot of time on country with just a couple of weeks prior, and her nephew, he was a very bright young man who offered very complex discussions to some of the young kids, and I was incredibly impressed by everything that the younger kids had the ability to say, and you can just tell the want to be a part of more and learn more. But yeah, it was a really good day. What do you think you got out of it?
I think, you know, we had a really specific role in a lot of ways. Like, I got to sit on a panel there. We've worked with the Aboriginal Languages Trust for a number of years, but specifically we worked on it's also like, you know, it's Aboriginal Languages Week this week, but it's also the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. So like UNESCO's declared till 2028, 2018, 2028, the Decade of Indigenous Languages. And so we worked with the Trust around developing their strategy, their 10-year strategy for the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. And so yesterday, they actually launched the strategy, which was mad. So we got to sit on a panel, talk to the audience really around what the strategy looks like in practice. And I thought that was mad because often, like, our work and, you know, work in policy, research and all that sort of stuff, it's generally so removed from community. And so actually launching it at community events like that and having panels and giving and fronting up to community and giving them an opportunity to actually like ask us questions about it, or, you know, for us to be accountable back to community about the work that we've done, it's actually really important. And we don't do it enough. Like, that was the first, I've been doing this work for, like, at Impact Policy for like over 4 years. And that was the first time I'd ever actually presented work that we'd worked on back into community. Like, put your face to it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was bad. So we got to talk a lot about that, you know, healing. My key message was around healing and truth telling. So that's one of the core pillars in the strategy. And I think it was really important. Like, we had our audience was very diverse. You know, there was a lot of people in our audience that weren't blackfellas. They weren't from Aboriginal communities, but they were clearly allies and supporters and, you know, wanting to get behind Aboriginal languages and our communities more broadly. And my message to them was around, like, you know, one of the pillars of this strategy is about healing and truth telling. And that's really important because, you know, a lot of you probably think about Aboriginal languages as just like, oh, this is a really great positive thing. And, you know, it's an education and learning journey. And that's all true. But there's also this really critical piece that's important to be trauma informed about, which is the whole reason why this work exists is because of what's been taken from us. And so even going on this journey and reclaiming and revitalizing our language and culture, it can be a sorry experience, but there's a lot of healing in it as well. And with that also comes the truth telling component. So, like, you know, society in Australia here, like, we all got behind, you know, wherever you sat on the decision around the referendum, truth telling is a big part of that. The Makarrata around the Uluru Statement from the Heart, truth telling is a big part of that component. So people talk about, like, well, what does truth telling look like? This is a great example of what truth telling looks like in practice, how that translates to, like, everyday, you know, like policy and process moving forward, recognizing and embedding that even strengths-based work, like investing in language revitalization, still comes with being trauma informed because of the truth around why this work even exists. And so, like, that was my main, I guess, like, anchor for the audience there, was them really understanding and taking that healing piece away in terms of the work that we're doing. You're doing the youth stuff, you know, like, that's so important because even that come up in the yarn that we had in our panel was about, like, young people and them being the next generation and stepping up. And, like, it's so important because, like, whether we like it or not, like, you know, you're like, what, 10 years younger than me, but your generation really is, like, the ones that should be championing and leading this work now. You know, there's not, like, any reason why, you know, like, yeah, we're guided by the people that have come before us and our elders give us knowledge to navigate that journey ahead. But we really need people like you and those other young people in that forum really starting to, like, have the autonomy to step into that space. And start to drive that. But that one makes me want to ask you about, like, what were some of the things that come out of the youth forum? So I think, like, a lot of people listening to this, they might be young people or there might be organizations that want to work with young people around this sort of work and different things like that. Like, from a language yarn, like, what was some of the things that they were saying at the youth forum?
I think one of the biggest, like, things that I saw and was really proud of is that every young person that was there knew that they held the power to change the way we speak to each other and change the way that is going to happen in the future. There was a bunch of incredible leaders sitting with me, and young kids, I can't remember how old they were, but young kids that were already so heavily involved in revitalizing their language and just wanting more out of it and leaning on each other as well as the elders. One thing that was great was the first 30 minutes having elders there that are putting a face to their work and what they've done and telling us that they're around, how they can contact us, and in words of encouragement, really, words of affirmations. And then one of the aunties even sang to us, which was beautiful. And all walks of life, some from Western Australia, some from Central Coast, a lot of mob from Coffs Harbour. And yeah, we were talking about, like, issues that we face. So how some of the kids face backlash when using language, if it's not done the right way, or that there's change, like the words have changed, and just their, like, personal experiences with lateral violence and the use of language. But it was a moment of reflection, and it was a moment of like community, because every single person there experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was like motivating, because it was like, yeah, we're all going to face that, because it's a difficult, touchy subject, and it's a hard one. And but it's not the hardest fight. Like, our elders fought the biggest fight, I believe. They did the hard yards, although it's not easy. We have like a lot to thank the elders for, and we have a lot to like look forward to, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of young fellas talk about backlash. Did a lot of young fellas talk about backlash that they experience from their peers, like other mob that aren't speaking or learning?
Yeah, it's their peers. It's usually around like, how would you say it? Like, it's usually around just like how language changes. There's old ways and there's new ways, and there isn't a lot of accessibility to what, like, a lot of the language trusts that we've worked with, people, your average folk don't know that they have so much resources. They don't know that potentially could be accessible to them. So they're basing it off word of mouth a lot of the time, which a lot of us feel is gatekeeping, because I remember when I was a kid, I would learn my language through my mum, and then notice similarities between other mobs. And if I would say, like, the word for star in my language is miri, and it was similar there, you'd get backlash for or like you'd second guess, you'd think it's wrong, but it's not. It's just there's so many different. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here.
That there's different. There's similar
things,
similarities across boundaries and language groups, and dialects. Sometimes they're not. Yeah,
and then I think also, especially because we live in the inner west, right? We've all walked into a corporate building where they've tried to incorporate Aboriginal languages, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, I've sat, I think it was a building across the road from Commonwealth Bank, and it was a meeting room, and they just called it. I think they called it. I can't remember what they called it, but it was something ridiculous, like an emu egg or something like this. And I was like, it just really didn't make sense. So a lot of them feel embarrassed. They were saying, one young girl said that she was embarrassed sometimes when there's random words that she might not know, or that she does know, and it just doesn't make sense. So, and then...
That's interesting.
Yeah. We've all seen that sort of stuff, right? Like, the use of language, sometimes it's just the context is wrong, but it's because they haven't done their research, or maybe they haven't sourced they don't have credible sources. They're just ticking boxes.
It's actually a really good point you make, because the Aboriginal Languages Trust is actually, this might be like breaking news, but they're just about to release Aboriginal Languages Use Guidelines. And the exact purpose around the development of that resource is for organisations like that company opposite Commonwealth Bank and others to know that there's guidelines that you should be following when you use language. You can't just pluck something off Google, or you can't just ask the one Aboriginal staff member in your organisation for them to give you a language word. There's generally guidelines and processes depending on where you are in the country that you're on. But for so long, that's been a problem, because the private and public sector has just gone rogue and just generally navigated it however they've sort of seen fit. So we're finally going to get at least some sort of guidelines from an organisation like the Trust, that's like, leading the state in terms of our languages, to at least draw some sort of a line in the sand for businesses like that and organisations to go, oh, okay, if I do want to name this room, then this is the process. I should reach out to traditional owners, or if not, the land council, or if not, there's like a bit of a step or a journey to go on, as opposed to just extracting. And recognizing that, like, access to language is not transactional. You don't just get to take it and keep it. It's, you don't own it. And so, like, I haven't seen the guidelines yet, but hopefully a lot of that sort of stuff is reflected there too.
But I do think that it is great that they want to incorporate language.
Absolutely.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I just think you just need to think a bit harder about it.
Yeah,
and who
definitely.
you want to use as your sources of knowledge.
Definitely.
Not just ChatGPT or something.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's pretty much...
What else we got?
I think that's pretty much the stuff that I got from the forum. I think it was really great hearing you talk on the panel. It was great hearing your fellow panelists. I can't remember their names.
Yeah.
But what did you think about the whole event?
Yeah, look, I think they did a great job. I think I was a bit sort of sketchy about how it would go being at Carriage Works, you know, away from NCIE, you know, is such a community sort of hub for events like that. It's funny when I talked about the healing piece when we first started this yarn today, the last Languages Week event was, 2 years ago, and it was the week of the outcome of the referendum. And I always remember it because that week was such a toxic week for our people and our country. And, you know, and then the outcome was no. And I think wherever you sat on yes or no, it was still really hard to go through that and to get the outcome that we got. And then we had the Languages Week event on that weekend. And it was just so nice that it was just, so many people I spoke to that day were described that day as like, this is like healing. This like feels like such a healing day, like coming together, because there was no like real agenda otherwise than celebrating our people and our tongue, you know? And that was mad. So I always remember that, and always reminds me how healing it is coming together around this sort of space and this work. So 2 years later, it was at Carriage Works yesterday, and they did a great job. I think it was done well.
Yeah.
And, you know, who knows where it will be in 2 years' time from now. I'm sure they'll start to maybe move it into different parts of the state as well, you know, and you know, Western Sydney or regional communities. Who knows where the journey goes, but so important, you know. And people might not know that are listening to this podcast, but you authored a book for your daughter. Do you want to tell people that are listening that haven't seen the Aboriginal Literacy Week video that you and Gabe put together?
Yeah, you should check that video out. It's pretty cute. It's got my daughter and my son Amari talking about the book we made as a family, Baraba Finds a Friend. And it is a pretty special book. It's how I've taught my kids the Gamilaroi words for all the animals that we would see on our road trips home on country. When I was a kid, we used to travel way more than I unfortunately get to with my babies, which is why I kind of wanted to put it on paper and make it fun. Their grandma did the illustration. She's an incredible artist as well. But yeah, I haven't published it yet.
Yeah.
But also in that, I did also speak about that at the Youth Forum as well. And you'd be surprised how many incredible authors there are amongst us. We're writers, we're storytellers, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA. And there were so many on that day. And even our elders, some of the elders that we had on the panel wrote many books, and it's all accessible. I'm sure I should have gotten some more details, but the Marrickville Library has a lot. You should go there.
It's just an important reinforcement though, right?
Yeah.
Like about that power of storytelling that sits in all of us.
Yeah.
Probably a real affirmation for you going there and sitting there and going like, I imagine that was the first time you sat in a space like that with other young fellas and talked about language and then talked about storytelling, and you're sitting there as an author who authored a children's book in language.
Yeah.
Like I've imagined that would have been pretty special, you know, or just reaffirming, like.
Yeah, it definitely was. I've spoken to you and so many people in the past about my feelings of imposter syndrome sometimes. So when I came out with the idea of putting a book out there for my kids to be able to access their language, and what am I trying to say? I was nervous.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like you kind of have this sense of like, I'm proud that I know this language and I want to share this language. And I'm a Gamilaroi woman. I was raised that way. I was raised on country and in Sydney as well. But part of me, for a long time, felt really alone in that. And that's because of the disconnection that I had. And being there amongst a whole bunch of other people that love and to celebrate their language, want to learn more about their language, it made me feel like you should see me yesterday. I was like in my element. I was like, I love it here. I love all these people. I was interviewing people.
Just vox popping people
Yeah,
randomly.
I was vox popping people because I was like, they're all strong, powerful, like-minded, Indigenous, beautiful people that love their language, want to share their language and want to see it grow, which is the best outcome of any event you ever want to put on in community.
Absolutely.
And it just like it flew past the whole day. The whole day was flowing and easygoing, and there was just such a great vibe. But it's because we're taking back and reclaiming that power, and it's literally language.
Absolutely.
It's such an important part of our identity, and there's a sense of pride in, even if you only know a little bit, or even if you just make that little switch in your mind that you want to learn. And what was amazing as well about the event is that they had so many resources of where you can find information. So many elders were leaving their details. So many, not just also young people leaving their details, because one of the young girls that was on the forum as well, she's from Western Australia, I think. I might be completely wrong there, but part of a school. And then, of course, our own Sean McCarthy's family. In the
Gumbanga.
The bilingual school.
Yep.
I want to see that. I want to see that everywhere.
Was there some reps in the youth forum that were connected to there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I just was like, this needs to happen everywhere.
Yeah.
It needs to happen in Sydney.
Yeah, it's inspiring stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and look, that's something for people listening that, maybe this is the first time you hearing conversations around Aboriginal languages in New South Wales and starting to understand a bit of the landscape around bringing them back. And they've never been gone. Some of them just sleeping. And there's amazing examples around exactly what's happening with the Freedom School in Coffs Harbour, where we've got young people that are growing up that are speaking Gumbanga as first language. It's incredible. I think I said in the panel, growing up in Glebe in Sydney, my father lived on the block, lived in New South Wales my whole life, and never had heard anyone speak language. And it wasn't until I'd worked on the Languages Trust work, 5+ years ago, that I went to Coffs Harbour and, would hear, Shawnee's cousin Clark speak in Gumbanga and just be like, and he's my same age as me, and I'm just like jaw dropping, this is, or go to Wiradjuri country and spent same thing with Sean. Sean was there, and Auntie Rhonda's daughter Hailey was with us, and we spent 4 days with Uncle Stan Grant and listening to him speak Wiradjuri, and same thing, and I'm like, how can I be this old and it's the first time hearing languages here being spoken so powerfully. And it just, that was one of my messages in the panel. They asked what you wanted to see in the future, 10 years from now. And it was about that not being a surprise, that being normalized for our kids, that it's normal for them to see, Maddie speaking language in the office. And, it's around them and it's accessible and it's a part of them. And Yindi Amara, she actually got her language name, funnily enough, after spending that time on country with Uncle Stan Grant. And I spent that time hearing about what Yindi might have meant and some of those learnings and lessons, and they really stuck with me, And someone came along not too long later and was named Yindi. But yeah.
Is that what is your earliest memory of hearing traditional language?
I think I said in the panel as well that it was my kids rushed the panel like they did now. Only now it was to steal my phone. But they asked the same sort of question, and my daughter said, oh, like she didn't know anything. But it was like, if you were to ask me as a kid, I probably would have said the same thing. But when you get older, you realize how much slang and lingo that you knew that you didn't realize was language words.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like all the words that we know, you know, that mostly the bad words.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but we didn't speak in, there'd be phrases or words or sayings, but they weren't sentences, you know. It wasn't like, what time is the bus coming?
Yeah, exactly. Like it wasn't, I remember getting shocked as an adult when whitefellas would know the words too.
Yeah.
You can tell when a whitefella's been around blackfellas in their life because they know those. Like, totally. They know gunjables, they know Jilwa, they know like so many different slang words. Like I remember I saw a TikTok and some guy was just like, nah, I'm just gammon. And I was like, that's literally, we say that, but it's like,
totally.
That, and they don't even know that it's a generally used in Indigenous culture, in Indigenous families, those words.
Definitely.
But
definitely.
My earliest memory would be my mum going off her head, so all the angry Wannagali, Yana, get out of there, or something like this.
Yeah.
But similarly to you and what the elders were saying as well, you didn't know that it's language, because I guess it would. I don't know the actual reason why. I don't know why we didn't, but I think it takes communication. There was nothing like the events that we have now when we were kids.
Yeah.
No one really sat you down and was like, this is your mother tongue. This is something sacred, something beautiful, something we shouldn't hide. I think when we were kids, it was still kind of a little bit hidden, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it had to be.
Yeah.
Because the generation before us was, you know, there was laws and policies that made our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents have to hide and have to not speak it because of fear of their kids being taken or fear of, you know, Uncle Stan Grant would tell us stories about how he was thrown in jail for speaking language when he was in his 20s.
Yes.
You know, and there's countless other examples of people that will share that stuff too.
Yeah.
But I think, look, for people listening, where to go from here, I think there's a really good opportunity for them to check out the work of the Aboriginal Languages Trust. So alt.nsw.gov.au, to follow their work. They're really active on Instagram, they're really active on LinkedIn and social platforms, and to really get along and support that sort of stuff and the events that you see in community more. Maybe we can do another podcast when the language use guidelines come out. And we can do something that's really practical for people listening around, like if they want to access Aboriginal languages, if they want to, you know, use Aboriginal languages in their work or however, you know, what's the best way to understand and navigate that. And we can use the guidelines to share that. Yeah.
One of the guests that were watching the panel asked a very important question on the day, and that was, how do we know which language, because there's so many in New South Wales, which language to pick? And I can't remember what your answer was for that.
I think there was me and someone else that tried to answer that, and it was a complex one because, you know, for people listening, like we're recording this on Gadigal country, and it's literally like the site of first contact. So the impact on the devastation of language and culture has been the most horrific on this country because of our history, and you know, and we see that across the East Coast for the most, across the whole country, but particularly across the East Coast. And so it's no surprise that there is that the what's the best way to say it? I'm sort of going to talk to Gulwin Young, who was on the panel with me yesterday, did a really great job of answering this, is that there's many different language groups and boundaries that make up and connect to the countries that we're on today. So it could, depending on who you're talking to and what part of country that you're standing on, it could be Dharawal, could be talking about Gadigal, could be talking about Darug, you know, and so it's just really important if you are on country that is really complex in terms of the history, that you tread really sensitively around how you navigate that. that you speak to people, that you move with care, and you move in a way that's really respectful. But the short answer is that you start with the country that you're on. So if someone's listening to this that's in Coffs Harbour, for example, then obviously they would start with Gumbaynggirr language is the language they should really be looking at trying to connect to. But Gulunyang actually, further to that, Gulunyang had a really great response to that question, because she talked about like language as country. So when we ask, when we connect to language, we connect to country. And so if you have young people, if you have, it was a grandparent that was asking this question about her grandchildren. And so she was talking about like, this is when your grandson connects to country, to place, to kin. This is like our language is in all of this. And so start with country, and then go from there. But yeah, it was a great question. That's
a great answer.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there's a space for impact policy to open up a follow-up session on the festival, specifically talking about language and accessibility? Yeah,
look, I think we're lucky. We've got a lot of staff at Impact Policy that have either worked in the past in the language revitalisation space prior to Impact, or as part of our work in Impact, we've partnered with the Trust around developing the IDIL strategy, the multi-year research agenda, and different pieces of work like that. And so I think a big part of accessibility is also communications, like what we're doing now. It's making sure that there's content, there's stories, there's opportunities for people to understand and listen, and that supports accessibility. A big part of what came out of the strategy that we developed was about access to research. So like there's all these great research projects that are happening within the Trust, but the Trust is a government organisation. So it's like, you think about your youth forum, like how accessible is the young fellas in there to be like navigating all this academic research? And so they're doing a lot of great work around how do they translate their research to make it accessible, digestible, and relevant for the language work that's happening on the ground. And I think we have a role to play in that potentially.
100%. I definitely see us holding, especially with youth. I feel like how would I word it? I feel like I see it because right now I'm just thinking about Hazel, and I'm thinking about reading my book to Hazel and how she's so proud to call herself a Gamilaroi girl. And I'm thinking about what the future will look like for her and how she can access her own language, and also more than just Gamilaroi language, wherever she is, what country she's on, how she's going to be able to learn and teach. And it makes me emotional because it's like we didn't even I didn't have that. I didn't have that when I was a kid. I would have loved it, and I'm just blessed to be able to pave the way for the youth now and my babies.
They talk about like healing being like 7 generations. You have to think about it. So it's like if you think about the devastation on our families, one of your grandmothers or great grandmothers was stolen.
Yes.
And so if you were even to link back to her or to even before her, you would be like what, fourth generation maybe?
Yeah.
In that line maybe of those women, for example, if you just went on that line. So then you've got Hazel, who's the 5th generation. So what the work that you're doing now, the start of what you've done now with Waraba Finds a Friend, you think it's only like writing a children's book for your daughter, but it's actually so much more. And the journey that you're on in that space is so much more powerful. But yeah, we have to zoom out and we have to think about this in context of where we've come from. And you have to think about this in the context of like, if you're in the 4th and Hazel's going to be the 5th, the work that you're doing now is actually laying the seeds for your great-grandchildren. And they will be the ones that are speaking Gamilaroi as a first language. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they will sit there and they will go, that was because of our great granny, Maddie, who wrote this book and went on this journey And then that inspired our granny Hazel to start to, you know, like that's how we have to zoom out and think that like the pain that we're trying to mend now is the result of like generations before us.
Yeah.
So we're kidding ourselves if we think in our lifetime we're going to sew it up, but we've got a lot of stitches, you know, in terms of that wound that we have really strong ability to close. And, you know, that's how we have to do it because that's what will sustain us for the long term. So
that was really beautiful what you just said. I'm sure. No, seriously, it was beautiful. I'm sure so many, because I was telling you the amount of authors that I came across, so many people have written books. They will really value hearing that. And it's so empowering to hear that. Thank you so much for that.
You're doing the hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any more questions?
No, I just think, you know, there's a lot of us at Impact Policy that are really passionate about language, whether we speak it or not. We know about how important it is because we can feel it in our bones. And so hopefully people that have listened to this will feel a bit of that and understand how critical this work is for our people, how strengths-based it is, but how important it is to be trauma-informed and tread lightly alongside us on those journeys together. And then, I think stay tuned to, you know, we'll do another episode around language more specifically. Maybe we'll get Sean on, who has a stack of Gumbaynggirr language knowledge, and then just language revitalisation knowledge more broadly.
Yes.
Maybe you and him can unpack the language use guidelines stuff. That'd be mad.
That would be.
And then we just, go from there.
Yeah, and just for our own mob as well, like you're not alone and we're fighting the same fight. We got to do it together. We got to, be together on it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Stronger together.
Yeah, we're stronger together.
Yeah.